Hello, found footage fans, and welcome to We Found a Tape. We're a podcast dedicated to all things found footage. Shaky cams, paranormal sightings, and everything with an authentic edge to make it all feel real. My name's John.
And I'm David.
And join us as we hit play and uncover what lies beyond the tape. G'day, mates. Welcome to another episode of We Found a Tape.
Foster's Australian for beer.
We're putting another shrimp on the barbie. This week's episode, we decided to have an Aussie double feature. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie! Oi, oi, oi!
Oi, oi,
Hey, hell yeah!
Yeah.
We picked an Australian movie for this week's episode, and I've been seeing another one being spoken about and shared about on Instagram and social media, and one that's been on my watch list for a bit. So we decided to have our own Aussie double feature.
Double the fun down under.
Double the fun down under. There you go. That's the theme of today's episode. But yeah, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the museum project and the household.
Yes, indeedy. And we're gonna get into both of these. We're gonna get into the Australian outback. We're gonna ride some kangaroos. It's gonna be a fun episode. We're gonna give you twice the fun here.
Exactly.
Odd question, because I mean it has nothing to do with what we're doing here, but just an off the wall question. If you and I were riding kangaroos and we got our kangaroos to fight, who do you think would win? My kangaroo or your kangaroo?
Good question. I think my kangaroo might win.
I've thought the same thing too, because mine is sporting 350 pounds on his back. He'd fall over like a fucking turtle.
Yeah, unless you had like a Rocky Balboa kangaroo that was like one of those like jacked kangaroos. Did you ever see those?
Oh yeah, I've seen those before. And
Yeah.
they just have it out there just lifting weights. Those things look jacked, man.
Yeah,
They look like they're pumping them full of steroids.
If you had one of those, I think it's a very good shout. But I think if we weren't on it and they fought, I think it's anyone's game, really.
Yeah, it's just which one is going to get the final hit. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But when you got two dipshits on their backs, I mean, who's to say which one's going to win, really?
But yeah, we rode our kangaroos, as David said. We rode it all the way to the museum, and we stopped by the household. So in today's episode, that's what we're going to be talking about. Mainly just because of the connection of Australian found footage, which I'm a huge fan of Australian horror, as is. So I was really excited.
There's something creepy about Australian horror because there's a lot of open area. It's a lot of countryside. You know what I mean? So I mean, it's a good atmosphere for anything horror related. It even more so in the dark because I mean, aside from running into some crazy killer that's trying to kill you, or some deadly animal that's on the Australian island that's just going to kill you in a matter of seconds. I mean, it's anyone's game. It's like Russian roulette over there.
It's been so well done. Like for me, there's a good amount of found footage movies, or a good amount of horror movies, I should say, and some really good found footage movies that I really enjoyed from Australia. One of which is The Tunnel, of course. It's one of the most famous Australian found footage movies. I mean, it's one of the main ones that sort of broke through into this side of the world, which is fantastic.
Well, let's just go ahead and start with Household, and then we'll jump into the museum project afterwards. So before we dive into it, let's hit them with that synopsis for the first one.
Oh yeah, I thought you'd never ask. An Aussie couple investigating a series of grisly murders get entangled in a conspiracy of a secret organisation with a deadly secret. Yeah.
Yes, indeedy.
So the household, it was created, written, directed by Luke Shaw, is the man's name. He is also in the movie, who plays Patrick Jones, who is the main protagonist within the movie. He's joined by his partner, who's called Sarah, and they're investigating this 9 murders that have happened in the area and sort of all across certain parts of Australia in the vicinity. They're investigating that, and they end up sort of going pretty far deep into that mystery.
I think it was pretty much localized to Adelaide, right, in South Australia.
I think the majority of the things that they were investigating were in that area. It was Port Pirie, Adelaide, and then sort of somewhere else. I guess it's this sort of highway stretch. So that's kind of how I understood it. But yeah, they're investigating this organization called the Household, which they believe are responsible for a group of 9 murders, all of young boys, I believe. I don't remember there being many girls as part of it. Disappearances related to people who were either connected to the case or who went public with information or who had started their own investigation. They were sort of silently disappeared, or mysterious things happened to them. So
yes,
there's a lot of things going on with this film.
There's like multiple cans of worms in this movie here.
Yeah, there's a lot of can of worms. You can tell that this was made truly by someone that loves found footage. I think it is definitely someone who's knowledgeable and who has a strong passion for it. So first of all, that is a huge point for me. When there is a movie made with such passion, I think you really need to give it credit, especially if it translates through to the audience or to the person who's watching it. Like, yeah,
I liked a lot of the scenes that were shot, as far as the quality of everything. The quality was so good. You know, the little things that they've added here and there, like the graininess and the old style VHS stuff.
Yeah, most definitely. I think that's another one of the points that I really took note of, is the sort of high technicality in terms of the cinematography that's happening here, because there's a lot going on. There's one main sort of cinematic camera that looks really, really high quality and sort of crystal clear. Then they also have a couple of VHS cameras, which are for B-roll, basically. B-roll cameras, and which comes with its own aesthetic. The sound overall, I think it was done very well. Apart from the music was a bit loud in a lot of the parts, but I mean that's fine. There was the drone footage, dash cam footage. So there's a lot of different technicality involved here with this film.
I agree with that. Everything was done really well overall. There was a lot of things going on. You know, it started with this household, this government system, I believe you said it was the center of these 9 kids that, you know, got killed. And, you know, they have like a poster board with all the kids' pictures, names, and everything, you know, when they died, stuff like that. Some of the stuff here was intense because a lot of it involved, you know, this household was such a thing bigger than just some like organization. Like, so many people were part of it. They had people following them. They had people knocking on their doors, sending them, you know, phone messages, like recordings of personal information, you know, like scare tactics basically, to get them to stop what they're doing. And this guy was just so persistent. At some point, his girl was even like, you know, I don't think this is a good idea. It happened on several occasions where we need to stop. And he just wanted to keep on going. He had it direct in his sight. There was nothing else that was going to distract him. She wasn't going to distract him, nothing. And this dude was just on a mission. And
the main thing I want to address is the length of time that this movie is. It's 1 hour 59 minutes long. I mean, that's 2 hours worth. The way that we watched it, and it was completely by accident, but I actually think kind of helped it a little bit. David fell asleep during the first like right in the middle, and long day, not because of anything.
Yeah, not because of the film.
Yeah,
I just gotten off of work and I was tired as shit, so that's why I fell asleep. It wasn't because of the film. So
yeah, and it was in the dark too.
Yeah, don't turn off the lights on me because I'm prone to pass out immediately.
Yeah, this guy was out cold. But it ultimately left us paused at around the 55-minute mark, and
Right.
it sort of broke the movie up into two segments, almost like, a part one and a part two of like a docu-series, is what I would sort of put it to. And with that sort of high quality camera, like, it really does come across as like a really well shot, really well crafted film. It's a bit too long for me.
Yeah.
I think is the main sort of grievance I have with it. And where it kind of led you in one direction, and you sort of jump over to the next, and it definitely felt sort of some areas of disjointment there. But I really think that just comes from experience. I believe this is the first film that Luke may have made. It's at least the first one that comes up for me in like the letterbox and stuff like that. So you could kind of see that there was some areas to cut out, and it would have brought that runtime down a bit and kind of felt a bit more. I think it would have just tightened it up a little bit, really.
Right. That's exactly what I was going to say. Tighten it up a little bit.
Yeah, like that's the best way I can think of it. And that for me is like those two are really the main sort of gripes I have with it. It's one you definitely have to pay attention to,
Right.
because as we said, David fell asleep. So he missed some plot points the first time, and then rewatching it again, you mentioned that there was some stuff that it tied up for you. So,
Right.
What were some of your thoughts?
So I have the same the same points that you made there as far as the runtime and some things that just kind of didn't flourish. The animation guy, the when they go camping in the woods, and the person that has the camera with the mask on, they show a dead body, and it really doesn't show who that body was or anything like that. The gaps and the holes, telling the story, it kind of worked in both ways. It left a lot of things unanswered, but at the same time, you're dealing with an organization that makes people disappear, kills them, things like that. So I mean, even like that, if you look at Mexican cartels, people disappear because of that. You never really know what happened to them. You never know what really they went through in that process. But there was a lot of traveling and money spent in this movie as far as like the actual journey through the movie, because they went to a lot of places. They interviewed quite a few people. Once they got so far into the interviews, these people backed out because they were saying too much. They knew what the household was capable of, and they turned them away. They stopped mid interview. That there was a lot of like mystery in this whole thing that was going on. There was a lot of unanswered questions because people were deathly afraid of the household. Evidently they're big enough to scare people that that were affected by this because their loved one was taken away, or they knew somebody that was affected. Even the YouTuber was trying to go down that road where he was trying to expose them, because wasn't his brother one of the victims too as well?
That's right. Yeah, that's how they come in contact with him.
Everybody was in on it, you know what I mean? In some way, like the household had a hold of all these people that they interviewed in some kind of way. Even the women that they interviewed, one of them was asking too many questions, like, when do you think you're going to go to the tunnel? Do you know what day for sure? Things like that. And finally she got a bit of information, maybe Thursday, depending if the weather's good or not. And they went, and sure enough, somebody was there waiting for them at the end of the tunnel. They ran into those people filming on the side of the road, told them to fuck off, basically. That was another one there. So I mean, these people were well organized, man. Even when he went on his trip, he was getting knocks at the door of somebody acting like it was a neighbor, saying that the flash was too bright, things like that. So I mean, there was a lot of things going on, man. They were in everybody's pocket, man.
Yeah, for sure. They definitely it's like a slow ramp up in intensity, because there's a lot of like small things that sort of happen to begin with. They get scared at the tunnels, and some mysterious things are happening there. They find out the car's been broken into. They check the dash cam. That's where they see a bit more. But it's the escalation that it gets to, because the main goal of theirs is to travel to the UK. They want to go and move to London. They're sick of Adelaide, and
right.
They want to move there, and the intensity of the strain that comes from the household, where it's getting like his visa cancelled, or he's being charged with
Yeah.
like, drug and alcohol offenses like drunk driving and like drug charges, and then it escalates to things like murder charges, and then he's like arrested and thrown in jail.
Got him trapped there, so it's just a matter of time before they come for him. And
This all could have been like forged, like a forgery, where none of this actually happened. Really,
right.
like he just received an email from like a scam.
That's another thing too. That's a good point, because I didn't even think about that. That it all could have been just fake documents.
Right, fake documents, but like very, very real looking fake documents, potentially.
And I think that's the beauty of it here, is that although that still makes you think that this could have happened. It's a movie that is a slow burn, but there's enough to keep you kind of like, okay, why did this happen? But at the same time, make you think of reasons why that could have happened. So it makes you think a lot.
It does really well in terms of bringing you in. It really sucks you into this. You're
Right.
rooting for them to find out what's happening. You're rooting for them to really find and stick it to the bad guy, really, in this case. So that he really is a protagonist, and then the household are very much the antagonists of this story.
Right.
So, going back to my earlier point about saying about how this really came from someone who feels like a true fan of the genre, it pays homage to a lot of different found footage films. Starting from the end and working backwards. I do feel like that end reminded me a lot of the Poughkeepsie tapes. It's kind of how it reminds me a lot of that. There's a scene where we see the footage of the kid who's strung up and his throat slashed by someone wearing a mask that we've seen throughout the film. It reminded me of sort of August Underground, the way that the camera's shot. It's like that grainy VHS saturation that's in there to make it that sort of bright, really bright, sort of sickly type pink, almost, of the degradation of the, just really bright looking. That reminds me a lot of August Underground. Of course, throughout, it reminds me a lot of The Tunnel in the way that they're conducting these interviews and explaining the story throughout, and the fact that they literally go to a set of tunnels. It looks like a really cool homage to that movie. We see some parts where it's sort of running around shaky cam, and obviously Blair Witch is a huge proprietor of that. So those were some of the main things I think came across to me. It may not be the case, but that sort of reminded me of that. It looks like it comes from a real, true found footage fan, and I love that.
I didn't notice that in the beginning, because I was actually just watching the movie to watch it through. But when you started pointing out all those things, it actually started making sense. So yeah, I can agree with that. It was a good thing that David fell asleep during the movie, because it really gave us a good perspective to take all the information in the first half, absorb it, come back, take the other half, absorb that, instead of trying to do it all in the 2 hours, because it was just so much to absorb. And even in me missing some key points the first time around, I went back today while I was at work, and I watched that first half that I missed, and I found stuff that of course I probably fell asleep through, and missed the first time, that pieced other things together. So yeah, I mean, if you want to power through it, by all means, go for it. But I think when you have a movie this long that has so much information and so many things to digest, maybe putting that break in between, even if you were to watch it in the same sitting, take a 15-minute break, go get yourself a snack, go to the restroom, smoke a cigarette. If you smoke a cigarette, go do whatever you got to do for a few minutes to let your brain process and everything, come back to it with a fresh brain, and take that next bit of information in. I would like to give this movie another watch, just to see if I've missed anything along the way again. It's one of those movies where you have to kind of go back and watch it a couple of times, because there was so much stuff to absorb.
I think in terms of that, it's really done its job well. It's got us thinking. We're putting pieces together. We're almost in this journey trying to solve it, and you feel part of that. And I think that comes down to, the characters themselves, the way that they're portrayed, and these Really high quality, well produced. The interview segments, I think, really sort of ties it all in and really puts you into this world. It's like watching like a documentary series, which there's quite a lot of them in terms of things like the UK. Like there's a lot of UK documentary and true crime shows that I watch. So it definitely has some influences from things like that as well, and I think it does that well. It's much easier to make a film about a real life thing because especially if it's local to the area or there's a lot of source material that you can work from rather than a full original thing. And if I think if it's a full original thing and there's no real like household type influence from that area, then it's really creative and it's done very well in terms of that mystery. I think that's quite hard nowadays because people consume so much true crime and documentary series because a lot of it comes through Netflix and other things. I think that really helps it to feel a lot more realistic.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And the good thing, with found footage, you can use stuff like this because I mean, human trafficking is a real thing, right? All over the world, happens in different countries. So I mean, that's a good thing to go on because I mean, that's a scary thing for somebody to get abducted and go through shit. And it also, when you're watching a foreign movie, whether it's found footage or not, it gives you a perspective on what's going on in other countries as well, and it gives you an insight onto how behaviors of people in different countries, the lingo, things like that, phrases, stuff that you don't hear here that, at the same time you're kind of learning when it comes to foreign movies because you get a taste of other countries as well and what they do and what they're about. So very cool.
It is always fun for me learning about other people's sort of cultures and urban legends and things like that. I think that is really interesting and finding out through the medium of a found footage horror film is also really cool. I think that's really one of the main sort of themes of this episode because the other movie we're going to talk about has a sort of feel of that as well based on the location. But yeah, if you want to watch The Household, check it out on Found TV. Again, it's 2 hours long, so remember that going into it. This is one I recommend for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
The way that it's shot, the way that it's color corrected and edited and put together is insanely talented, insanely creative. Huge kudos to Luke for that. I think there's some parts that are just really well shot and really sort of beautiful and really done very well and made to feel like a real documentary, a real high level documentary, which I think if you're able to do that in a sort of small budget indie way, then yeah, that's a huge congratulations and a huge selling point. And if you love true crime, you love mysteries, I think it's a great movie for you to check out. What Happened to Susie's another good mystery, sort of slow burn thriller. I think that is a good example of another movie that's sort of in the same sort of realm. Two different flavors, I would say, of that sort of mockumentary style. So
yeah, if I could find another one to compare it to, I would compare it to that one. The same type of mystery thriller, edge of your seat kind of stuff. But yeah, one thing I did want to point out though, I thought the main character that Luke played, I thought it was pretty clever that he was hiding his money in the back compartment of his guitar.
Yeah, that was cool.
Like I'm not a guitar player. Like I play drums, but never being a guitar owner, that the back of an electric guitar, you can pull it apart and stash some money in there. It's pretty clever.
And a thumb drive.
And a thumb drive. He had a thumb drive in there. He did.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that. Jeez, that's pretty.
Yeah.
Hey, what else can you hide in there?
Not too much, because that's really where the sort of tension for the strings comes in. So there's these springs in there, so there's not a lot of room in there. But for small items like that, especially if there's like a little gap, oh yeah, for sure, you could probably hide stuff in there. An acoustic guitar, you could probably hide a lot more in, to be fair. If you put like a jacket or something in there, or like a small sort of towel or blanket, you can probably put stuff in there because it's sort of hollow in the middle.
You can hide your booger sugar in there.
There you go. You could probably do that in the back of the guitar as well, but you might forget, and then you'll hit the strings too hard, it'll burst open. So you never know.
Give a nice effect to have like a powder cloud, when you hit a riff.
Hit the whammy bar, and it's like you crop dust the front of the audience. I think with that being said, I think in terms of giving it a rating, I think for me it's probably a good like three tapes for me. I think again what I mentioned, like it is really well done. It definitely is. I think with experience and sort of taking in, which I think is really constructive feedback. I think from reading some of the reviews, the length of it and the way sort of things are tied up, definitely if those are tightened up, I think it definitely boosts up because it's really well made, really cool movie, and I definitely would recommend it. So yeah, 3 for me.
Director's cut.
Director's cut.
Yeah. So for me, honestly, watching it yesterday was sitting at a 2. After I watched the first half again today and it pieced some stuff together, it's sitting at a 3 for me now. Yes, I do have the small issues with the loopholes and or the dead ends, I should say, and the length of the time. But a lot of this stuff was shot really well. There were a lot of scenes in there that were done really well, stuff like that. But other than that, everything was good. I really enjoyed the story. I enjoyed all the evidence they came across, the shady people that were in on it, that they interviewed, things like that. All the characters, they played their parts really well. Yeah, that's the only thing that I have. I do recommend giving it a watch. Just again, be wary of the time.
And I want to do a quick sort of shout out to Cam's Horror Outback, who is someone that we know through Instagram. He's a listener of the show, absolute legend, in my opinion. Such a great guy. He does a lot of found footage reviews on his Instagram, so I'm going to pop that in the description. But I reached out to him and asked for some Aussie lingo, and he sent me a bunch of stuff. There was some parallels between what he mentioned and what sort of proper Scottish people would do, which is say cunt all the time. You can either say it as an insult or you can sort of say it as a term of endearment. Like in Scotland, if we call someone a sound cunt, it's not a bad thing. It means that they're a good guy. Sound in the UK means that someone is a good guy. You know, he's cool. He's cool. He's sound. Sound is a pound.
We're so simplified in America because at least everyone outside of America says it in a way that it's like it's clever, but it's meaningful, right? If I just say that dude was a cool guy, I mean, it's just so plain. It's just so American. You know what I mean?
You know, if you're saying like, you know, no bother or no worries, you'll say no dramas.
It sounds like more like cleverly thought out than saying, yeah, no worries, man.
There's some that I don't even know if I can pronounce them. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, Flamin Gala. I've got no idea what that means. Some of them we didn't translate, left us out there, so we might be saying something incredibly offensive there in Australia.
Oh my god.
For that, fuck off, can't.
I noticed that you know, outside of the US, especially like in Europe, Australia, everyone says fuck off a lot.
Yeah, we saw a movie recently and they told someone to fuck up. So we've been saying that a lot. Reminding me of my time in Scotland, you know? Telling people to fuck up instead of shut up. Like, it's basically like shut up and fuck off at the same time. So you just tell someone to fuck up. Yeah, this is our most adult episode yet, I think. But those were sort of the main ones. He mentioned a good one was carrying on like a pork chop. I don't know what that means, so Cam, when this episode comes out, you tell us what that means, because I didn't question you and I've now said it, so it may be like sort of, you know, acting a fool, maybe. Like, because I know that from in the UK, like carrying on is like, you know, like horsing around.
Right.
Thank you, Cam, for that. And back to the regularly scheduled programming.
And this one, the museum project, I first saw it when POV horror was first out. It was like one of the shorts that were on there. And it was just one of those apps that I found playing around on a Roku TV. And I found the app, I downloaded, you know, found a lot of random things on there. and I just decided to give this one a go, and it blew my mind because it was just so well done, dude. It was great. I really enjoyed it. So I actually watched it a few times throughout the years, come back and visit it every now and then, and it still, hits me every time because there's a lot of points in there that we can make on it as we get into it. But yeah, if you want to hit them with the synopsis for this one, let's jump right into it.
The Museum Project from 2016 is a group of Aussie students who are investigating the myth of the Railway Museum learn the hard way that some myths are more than stories. This there's not a lot I don't like about this, and I think a lot of this is just going to be a lot of praise because, it's 44 minutes long, it's on YouTube.
It was so well paced for 44 minutes. Like, they got everything that they needed to get into it. There was no rushing it. Everything was just so well paced that, everything just fell fluid. Like, everything just came one right after the other. And the way that they shot angles, scenes, the way that they did the spirit, the backstory of this museum, everything was good. Like, it was just solid all the way around.
And this was directed and written, I believe, by Dion, Cavallaro, and Paul E. Thomas. Yeah, it was really well done, David. Like, for 44 minutes, it was paced incredibly well.
I almost feel like that it could have gone the full hour. There could have been like a good 15 minutes of some more stuff that could have been crammed in there. But overall, I have no complaints, man. This started out with a story about, the actual museum, the history of it. But they're there, of course, to document supposedly that it's haunted, right? They start talking about the conductor, or was he a conductor?
Yeah, the conductor apparently was a serial killer.
Right.
And his train car was decommissioned and put into the museum as part of like a transport museum or a railway museum in this case.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're basically looking into is the reports of there being potential paranormal activity. As film students or as media students is how they're classified, not necessarily film but media. So I think it's more so they're going into that sort of journalism type filmmaking. Right. So that's where I think where it comes across is sort of media students, and they're in there during the day, looking around, sort of getting some shots, and they find out that it's not as scary during the day. There's not a lot of activity that would really happen during the day, as with most paranormal movies. The guy who runs the place doesn't want to let them out in the middle of the night.
And he's very dismissive about, the speculations about it being haunting. He's like, no, it's just, some story that people are talking about. Never experienced anything here. It's just a museum. There's nothing to see here, basically.
Yeah, you're right. Bill is the character's name. He is like the manager of the museum. He's more than happy to talk about it, like how the museum is, but he's very dismissive, like you said, to the thought of like a paranormal aspect to it. So he said it brings negativity to the museum, which I think with a lot of these types of things, like whenever there's a place where a murder occurred or some sort of local legend, some killer house or whatever, like it brings a lot of attention from dark tourism. That's definitely a thing, and there's probably local dark tourists in the area that would try and get there at night, or every sort of anniversary it comes up, or a new set of kids that are in high school or whatever start talking about it. That's how these legends and lore progress through life, right? That's why the tales are always brought on to the next generation of people. Like, oh, have you heard about this? And ghost stories to try and scare the kids and stuff. So it definitely is a good attempt at that, and I think that the way that it's delivered through the fact that there's these sort of in terms of the pacing, I think it ramps up in terms of the story, but also in terms of the encounters that they come into, and I think the delivery of those is done very well. Again, considering the fact that this is another sort of low budget movie that came out 2016. I believe it's the first project, like a first little small project for young up and coming filmmakers that I think they maximized what was available to them. and did that
Right.
really well. As they sort of go in there, they sneak in at night. They're getting all the footage. You see alleys all lit up and excited to go in, and there's always that point where they get split
There's al-
off.
there's always that one naive one that's like, nah, nothing's gonna happen. We'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it definitely escalates as they go around, sort of looking around the area and getting their footage.
Now, there was one encounter during the day. There was a stopwatch, like a pocket watch. Well, not a stopwatch, a pocket watch on the chain that was dangling outside of the car when they were filming inside one of the cars. And the cameraman caught it. He saw it. It was just a random pocket watch. It was just hanging there with the flip, the face open.
Mm-hmm.
And she came in and kind of scared him a bit, or tried to scare him, pointed the camera towards her. They had a little interaction. He went right back. It wasn't more than 5 seconds. Looked out the window and the watch was gone. Of course, he didn't point that out. He just kind of thought, like, was I seeing things? Because a lot's going on. They're kind of just going through the cars and looking at stuff. So they're kind of distracted by looking at all the cars and things like that, the box cars. But when they get home later, they notice that he points this out to, check this out. Look what happens. The watch was there. We had this little interaction. We go back, and the watch is gone. So that kind of gave them the incentive to still go back, even though they set that door up to be jimmied open. It was kind of left open a little bit, and come back in. It just kind of gave them that motivation to go back even more. And of course, they end up there at night. And I want to point this out, that I don't care if it's a train museum, I don't care if it's an aquarium. You go to any kind of museum at night, that shit's scary, man, because there's a lot of props, a lot of history around you, energy, things like that are going on. It's scary, man. And even more so that they're going to like an old train car museum and everything is just so old and vintage inside and out. It just gives you the creeps, man, because everything's in rows. There's not really much visual between the cars except front and back. And, the idea of something grabbing your legs from under the train. I mean, there's a lot of things that if you stop and think, there's a lot of phobias here that, will jump out at you. So overall, for me, I mean, that creeped me out, just being in there at night by themselves. And then also, too, they go into the cars, they're looking around, looking at things. Kind of the first thing that happens is the train sirens go off, right? The ones that warn you that the train's coming on the tracks, because it has a push button to enable it. And of course, it's going off out there. They come out of the car, they go down the thing, and right before they get to it, when they come into the light of it, it just stops. And there's no other way to start it but pushing the button. So, I mean, that was the first encounter that they had, and that was done really well because it happened right as the light was coming up to it, to not give you any indication that somebody was there, was pushing the button, and make you think at the same time, well, is somebody in here with us that's pushing the button and messing with us?
You're absolutely right. Museums are fucking creepy as shit. The thought of being one at night is so scary because all the shadow in the area, because it's not going to be lit up. If it's lit up and stuff, I mean, it's fine. But like when it's dark like that, oh, it's so scary. They only have like a couple of flashlights and the
Right.
light for the camera, which
Torches.
yeah, torches. Yep.
Yeah, we
There
talked about this.
was a lot
This,
of really really good scares in this. I think the jumps
yeah,
were very well done, and sort of the found footage tropes were done very well. Um, the scene where they're looking at the footage with the pocket watch, like that's very much like a found footage trope where they like review it, like it happens in Paranormal Activity, it happens in Hell House, like it's happening in the museum project. So they're definitely again paying attention to found footage, and that's sort of small things to help make it a bit more grounded in reality and a bit more believable. So that again, I really loved that. The hair flick was done well.
yeah,
The
the hair flick was done really, really well.
yeah, we come face to face with the conductor.
That
Ned
guy
was
was creepy just in the picture
yeah
alone. The pictures that they find of him, the guy just screams creepy, right? Because he's a tall, bald white man with a hat in a suit, the conductor suit, and he just has that look to him, like he's sinister. And when they encounter him the first time, the where he kind of growls at them, and the whole mouth just opens up and drops down to like the belly, like it just opened up like that into like this black hole. That was creepy. And it was just
Yeah,
it was just an instant. It was just for a second, because of course the camera turns because they're running away from it, but it was just enough for you to see what it was, and it was a good jump scare.
Yeah, it was done really well. A lot with the when he's checking for the batteries for the light for the camera, and the door sort of closes on him, like
Yeah,
and he doesn't see it. Like we were talking about how we'd see it out of the corner of our eye, but
right.
I guess if you're really focused on the light, especially if it's not really well lit in that area, and you're just sort of head buried down, I think I would have sorted the corner of my eye and freaked the fuck out, to be honest.
Fuck yeah, I would have.
But yeah, that was done really well. And then as we come to the conclusion of the movie, there's an encounter directly with the conductor, and we see, I believe it's Paul, it's the cameraman, right? He gets brought up in the air, and sort of you hear some sort of cracking, and then he just sort of drops to the
Drops
ground.
down. Yep.
Yeah, so that's another sort of good found footage trick. Sort of put that frame of like the area, and then have someone disappear for a few seconds and have that sort of pause. Like you see that in things like Paranormal Activity, when just before he flies towards the camera, like there's that pause to like,
And it's kind of like that rumble in the background. Yeah, you have that little rumble in the background, and then the drop.
That, yeah, and that sort of paranormal buzz and sort of rumble,
Right.
when you sort of felt something close. So, yeah, I really appreciated that. I really dug that.
Not to forget the first guy that disappeared. He stayed by the track siren to I don't know. I don't remember what he was doing.
Yeah, he was getting noise. He was getting sound from the.
There it was from the lever that he was pulling.
Crank thing. Like and it was the most annoying sound ever. Like it's like there's plenty of other stuff you could get really good sound of, like a bell or like a, like those like sirens or whatever, like in the distance or like kind of up close. But the creaking of this, like, and she kept not doing it properly. She did it right the first time and it didn't come through right. So they kept doing it.
It sounded the same, the exact same time every time. It didn't make any sense, but whatever. He stayed there, and he got the first. He was the first one because they came back to look for him. His stuff was thrown on the floor. I mean, he was just gone. And then later on, they find his I was gonna say flashlight torch by the door, or going towards the door. And even that, the door was locked to it at one point. They couldn't even get out of the museum anymore.
Yep, you're absolutely right. And another thing that sort of points to me again, influence from The Tunnel, highly influential film for Australians, for found footage creators in Australia. The sound guy went first, and the sound guy was a bit of a strange one. The in The Tunnel, that's a huge sort of plot point. They're trying to get this ringing of the bell down in the tunnels, and the sound guys try to get the right spot, and then he's taken, and they then go deeper into this mystery, trying to find out where he is and bring him back out. And they get to a point where they basically say, okay, we need to get ourselves out of this, and we need to go and get help, and we can bring them back. That's kind of how it goes down in The Tunnel as well. So there's definitely a lot of influence from that, which isn't a bad thing, because The Tunnel is fucking awesome. And
right.
I absolutely love it. And you'll if you watch the Museum Project, I think you'll definitely see that influence and that homage.
I can see some parts of Paranormal Activity as well, for sure.
Right, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's definitely more influenced by Paranormal Activity than the likes of Blair Witch. Like if you see those sort of wooded area, shaky camera footage, I think that's where the similarities to Blair Witch are found, and where a lot of people sort of shit on found footage films is where that happens, because it's clearly a trope of it for sure, right? So
I get a kick out of I've seen stories of people that with the shaky cam found footage movies, they get motion sickness from it. I find that funny that they get motion sickness from it. I've seen stories online where people have left theaters watching movies like that because they just got so motion sick from it that they had to leave and couldn't watch it anymore. I don't know. I just find that funny. And this is coming from somebody that, if I'm in a vehicle that's moving, if I'm looking out the window, everything is fine. The minute I start reading a book or playing a video game inside the car, instant car sickness, dude. Like
100%.
I just start getting nauseated. Like I can't take my eyes off the road.
Which, if you're driving a car, you probably shouldn't be reading a book or taking your
Right.
eyes off the road. So,
Hey, what I do on my personal time in the car is my business, okay?
no, I'm the same.
But this movie was overall well done. I mean, we came down to the last survivor, which was the girl. You know, after the cameraman was disposed of, you know, she came outside to check on him. You can see that somebody's approaching her, but you don't see who's approaching her, and then you just see her dragged away, which is really well done because of the proper angles that they used. You know, it really didn't show you what was pulling, but you know who was there. It was the conductor. But overall, man, it was done so well. Like it scared me in some points, and I think that's what interested me. And it was just such a good time for it, as far as 45 minutes. I mean, everything was pieced together so well. And if you want to watch a found footage movie and you don't want to commit a full hour and a half to a full movie, I mean, this is a good one to go with because it's only, you know, 45 minutes, less than an hour.
The runtime is definitely to its advantage. It's on YouTube for you to watch. It's not streaming anywhere else. It's on YouTube. I mean, if you're really looking for, you know, an entry level found footage movie, which is really an entry level movie for these guys that made it, I feel like they've gone on to do more things, which is great. Found footage is a great vehicle for that, to really test your skill set and test your imagination and test yourself, really, if you're curious about making a film. I think it definitely helps you to get over that hump. It definitely comes across as that. It's a great mockumentary, great paranormal type of found footage, and yeah, it's done very well. Definitely check it out. If you're fans of these types of movies, obviously The Tunnel is a huge one, and another one is the Glenarma tapes. Irish college students, media students who are investigating something. So if you're a fan of those types of movies, then definitely check out the Museum Project and check it out on YouTube.
I don't think I've seen the Glenarma tapes. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Oh, it's good, man. I enjoyed it. For me, honestly, I think Ireland and Australia make some of the best horror movies, and also some really, really good found footage films.
I'll have to check it out because Australia's done pretty good.
In terms of a rating, I think, David, I'll let you do the honors.
I'm gonna give it a solid 4 tapes.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there, David. For me, I think it's a solid 4. We almost wish that it was a little longer.
I wouldn't be mad if it had gone another 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, but again, it's also a key in preserving as much of the main story as possible without a lot of other stuff in the middle. I think from what we've discussed in this episode, we've went from sort of two ends of the spectrum. One is a longer, more cinematic thriller, mystery, crime, both in the realm of mockumentary. They both go into their own sort of local lore, and I think that's great for what they're doing, from where they're coming up from, telling those stories. And there's clearly an influence that's come from somewhere in both cases, whether that's, you know, who knows if the train museum is truly haunted, who knows if there's truly a government conspiracy in Australia or Adelaide for all these missing people. It definitely is a case of showcasing where you're from and showcasing that the myths and legends that are in the area. And both were highly creative, really well done, and definitely two found footage movies I think everyone should most definitely watch.
Absolutely. Well said, sir. Well said.
Oh yeah. No, you can tell they're both made with, you know, the idea of found footage, and at least a solid foundational understanding of the genre, the tropes, and the way that the films sort of progress in terms of a story and a narrative, and the technicality of the shots that were done. The Household was more of a higher technical perspective. Definitely like a film student is the sort of vibe it comes with. And the Museum Project is definitely like a sort of younger, and it definitely captures that essence of student filmmakers or student, documentarians who are, seeking out the truth, and I love that. I love that for both of them. It was great. It was really great. I felt like we watched like a proper like Australian crime series together.
Yeah.
What we'll do as well is I'm going to be leaving the filmmakers, anyone that I'm aware of that worked on the project for both movies. I'm going to leave their information in the description. They're going to be tagged in all of our posts on social media, so do us a favor and go and follow them if you don't already. The household for sure. I do know that they are releasing DVDs which look as handmade. So this guy's incredibly creative. So, and I found out today that only found footage fans, their shop online is going to be stocking the household on DVD. Previously they were being shipped from Australia, and with the cost of, pricing and shipping these days, it's a lot. So that's definitely a way to sort of circumvent some of those long and large import fees and postage and packaging and things like that. So definitely check that out. I'll be sure to put a link in the description where you can go and get your own copy of the household if you're looking for that. Be sure to follow us on social media, on Instagram. We're at We Found a Tape. Wherever you listen to podcasts, whether that's Spotify, Amazon, or Apple. On YouTube as well, at We Found a Tape. Be sure to follow us everywhere, and stick around for more upcoming episodes of We Found a Tape and an upcoming episode of Tape Talks that we're really excited about. So
stay tuned, everybody. Don't forget, be kind, rewind. We'll see you next time.